Peace. What's up, y'all? Phil James. Today is Friday, November 17th, 2017. So, I was just doing a few things and something crossed my mind from back in the day in like school and stuff, and just things that I learned about. So, the Milgram experiment. If you heard of it, you know what it is. Happened in like 1963, I believe, something like that, and it all went down at Yale University. Surprise, surprise. Skull and bones and all that, yeah. So, basically, the reason I want to talk about this experiment is just to show how screwed us truthers and, people that don't necessarily go by society guidelines, or people that we're a different breed. Us truthers have an open mind. We're a different breed. We go by, we tick a different way. You know what I'm saying? We can see the bullshit. Other people just cannot seem to do it. They think it's too far-fetched, too unheard of, or just down, just too crazy. Well, we live in a time right now where absolutely everything just seems way too crazy. Whether it's the shit that companies do to gain profits, the stuff that politicians or big investors do to continue making their profits, or the products that are sold to consumers by big companies, and just the terrible things our government does willingly and knowingly to its own citizens. So yeah, we're in an absolute crazy time right now, and when you have so-called preachers or so-called priests doing, terrible things, and you know what I mean? It's all crazy, in other words, is what I'm getting at. So, the reason I'm saying, people like us are going to have it hard in the upcoming years when shit hits the fan is because of things like this, the Milgram experiment. Like I said, 1963, I believe, Stanley Milgram was a Yale University professor. World War II is just ending. They had the trials for all the Germans, the Nazi scientists, who were torturing Jews in the Holocaust, right? So, a lot of the trials were always ruled out as just obeying orders, and, you know what I mean? They were just taking orders. That's what the Nazi scientists were saying as their defense. So Stanley was like, I don't think all these can be accomplice charges. These people did it regardless. So basically, the point of me sharing this, if you haven't heard of it, Stanley Milgram, this man, what he did was he took two people. One person was called the teacher, one person was called the learner, and one of them would be hooked up to a machine with electrodes put on their body, right? The other person would be set down beside a button, and Stanley Milgram would tell them, push the button, because he's the authority, correct? So this person would push the button, and it would shock the other person with the electrodes on their body. Each time that the person obeyed the authority, Stanley, the shock would increase. So the next time they pushed the button, it would go from 15 volts to 20 volts or whatever, you know what I mean? So as the experiment went on, the person clearly knew they were shocking the other person with the electrodes on their body. But Stanley Milgram would continue to say, you have to push the button. You have to do it. You have to push the button. It's absolutely essential that you press this button. You have to press this button for the experiment. And the people would continue to do it. So people are willing to physically harm another person because an authority figure said so. Now, what's that mean for us? You know what I mean? But there is a quick video on here, and I will play it. Maybe, depending on how long it is.
A decade earlier, psychologist Stanley Milgram had also looked at how we respond to authority. In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Where?
Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud. Horse. Rock. House. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer. Horse.
Experiment, that's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right ahead.
I refuse to go in. Let me out.
Refuses to go on. The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor, and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're gonna get a shock. 180 volts.
Oh! I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
I'm not gonna kill that man there. I mean, who's gonna take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please. All right, next one, slow. Walk, dance, truck, music.
Two-thirds of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering on less voltage. Can't you check in to see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis.
All right. Now, do you understand what that means? Like how mind-blowing that is. It's kind of similar to the other experiment. What was that? Where there's a bunch of people sitting in that doctor's office, and every time that noise was made, people would stand up, and then the people that weren't in there the whole time were like looking around the room like, what the hell is going on? But then after a few times of seeing everybody else do it, they just started to stand up because they didn't want to be the one person not doing it. So we conform. You know what I mean? We conform. People conform. I'd like to say that a lot of the truthers in the world would not conform, but that's a very unlikely statement. I would like to also say, yeah, me, I've always been against the obedient authority figure, you know, like I've always been against the authority. I've always been against the government. I've always been against it all, and I've always been an outcast. So therefore, I have no problem going against the grain of mainstream. I have no problem going against the trends or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people don't have that capability, you know what I'm saying? So when the time comes and truthers and whoever else, they put labels on like alt-right, or you know what I mean, the alternative right and left, or whatever the case, whatever they want to call us, or conspiracy theorists, or tinfoil hat wearing, you know, whatever. When they start to say stuff about us, and it gets worse after they censor our voices, where do we go from there? You know what I mean? Because the common people in this country are going to go by whatever they say. And as you can see, humans are more than willing to obey an authority type figure, all because they're wearing a lab coat. or they're more than willing to obey somebody they consider an authority figure because they say so. You know what I'm getting at here? This is why I'm a flat earther. This is why I don't believe shit NASA says. This is why I don't believe science shit anymore. I mean, not all science, but are you kidding me, dude? This dude just pulled right out in front of me. What the fuck? Sorry. But the point is, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are just willing to obey. Like I said, that's why I'm a flat earther, because just because the authority, the self-proclaimed authority on the subject tells us something does not in any way, shape, or form mean it's an absolute fact. And they even admit that everything they teach is theory. So why is it that we are taught and pushed into this? Well, because they have another agenda, and they, you know, want us to learn something or memorize something that's not necessarily true. They want us to be deceived or whatever. This can go in any situation with any topic. But I'm hoping this came out clear enough. It's just insane that, you know, people are more than willing, not willing, I guess, but people will cause other people physical harm by their understanding because an authority figure said to do so. So when, you know, the mainstream media comes out and says truthers are anarchists and they hate the common American way of life, we should all beat them in the streets. What do you think the majority of people are going to do? You know what I'm saying? They're going to do it. They're going to go right up and do it. Or when, you know, it comes down to life and death at the end of this, and when we're getting chipped or whatever the case may become, you know what I mean, here in the near future, or AI police forces are put out into the streets and we're told to obey, we're told to do this and that, where do you think it's going to go? The common person does not have the mental capability to disobey. Like, they have to conform. Most people have to conform. They have to. You get what I'm saying, I hope. I really hope so. I will put this link in the description, so if you want to read through this experiment and figure out a little bit more into it. It's kind of a really screwed up experiment. I mean, yeah, nobody was actually getting shocked. They were just actors. But, you know what I mean? It almost seems kind of depraved. I mean, in a sense. It's just so screwed up, man. But humans conform. Humans obey. So when there are self-proclaimed authority figures on a subject or matter, people still seem to obey. And that's a problem. That is a problem. But, alright, y'all. Hope everybody has a good Friday. Hope everybody enjoys their weekends. And yeah, like I told you guys in the video this morning that took all night to upload about the mosquitoes, I have quite a few video topics right now, and hopefully I'll have a couple out later today. Peace.